Oh my goodness. If you are struggling, do not struggle in secret. If you have some sort of secret sins, if you have some sort of thing that you've been hiding, if you have anything that you're ashamed of, that only grows in the dark. Deliverance is not coming because you kept it a secret long enough. Deliverance is coming because you peel back to the dark parts of your soul and were honest to someone.
Yeah.
And the light flooded in, and the healing entered your heart, and the abundance that Jesus Christ has poured into you.
Well, what's going on? Welcome to the Next Gen Ministry Coaching Podcast with Ryan Manring. That's me. I'm so excited for you guys to be joining for this episode. We have Daniel Maddry on from Youth Pastor Co. And we talk a little bit about the origin of his company and what they do as a youth ministry resourcing website, but also so much more than that. The second half of the interview, definitely stay and check out, because that's really where we're talking about the heart of youth ministry and how to stay healthy and how to be in ministry for the long haul. So I think you're going to love it. Please listen to it. If you can, just take a second. As you can see, this channel is new and we're trying to put content up as much as we can, but every like, every view, every subscription means a ton to me personally. And if it's a value to you, please share this on your social media. Please share it with other youth pastors, other youth workers. Would love to spread the word for this show, just to get the message out and help resource more youth pastors. And on that point, I made a free resource for you. If you go to nextgenministrycoaching.com, you're going to find this handout right here, this PDF of 100 ways to grow your youth ministry. This is totally free as a resource for you. It's nothing fancy, it's nothing flashy, but what I hope it is it's over 100 actually unique ways that you can help drive guests, visitors, retain more people, make an impact in your community, all broken up by category for you. Actually, I have a whole video on that you can watch here. So you can see that in all the descriptions for this, in audio that you can listen to for that. So would love to have you guys go check that out. So go get your free guide today. Check out the site. That also just enjoy this episode. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you on the next one too. Well, Daniel, what's going on, man? Thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Ryan. Thanks so much for having me on. Excited to be here.
Yes, I've been looking forward to this. You are a titan in the youth space these days. I feel like if you're on social, you can't get away from your stuff, man. And you're okay. Always. I feel like you're in my inbox all the time. You're on my Instagram feed, and it's always amazing stuff. So I'm thankful for you.
We are relentless whenever it comes to creating content on our Instagram. We should get into TikTok. I know that could be a sensitive subject for some, but I feel like maybe there's a TikTok revolution coming through the Youth Pastor Co. company here pretty soon, so be on the lookout.
Well, Daniel, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. I'd love to hear a little bit of your story, and just kind of you can share that with everybody that's watching, listening to this. How'd you get into youth ministry, a little bit of your testimony, kind of how you got into what you're doing now.
Well, listen, if you need to cut me off or steer me in a new direction, here's your promise, here's your invitation to do that, because it's a wild ride. But like you said, my name is Daniel Maddry. I have been in or around youth ministry for 14, almost 15 years now. That seems insane to even say out loud. And I love it. I absolutely love it. The interesting thing about me is that from the earliest memories that I had, all I wanted to do was be a youth pastor. I was like born wanting to be a youth pastor. We didn't even go to church regularly. We probably went to church once, maybe twice a month. It was not like, it's like my entire family didn't go. It was kind of sporadic, but in the depths of my soul, all I wanted to do was be a youth pastor. And it's funny, it's exceptionally funny looking back, because I grew up in a small town. There were like 3 churches there. And I was like, okay, I think we have one youth pastor in this community. And basically people only become pastors whenever someone dies and like passes on the church. I'm like, the odds of me being a pastor are just so slim. I just thought it's not possible.
Can we just take a second and just shout out any small town youth pastor you are an absolute legend.
Yes, small town youth pastors, you are the backbone of youth ministry. And what I feel like what they don't get credit for so often is the types of students that they produce. You know what I mean? Now, we love the big ministries, we love the mega churches, we love the big budgets and all this stuff. But I feel like there's a certain glory that comes in being in a small youth group. Like, hey, there were 15 of us and we were tight knit and we had a real deep relationship with not only our youth pastor, but the church at large. And I feel like those ingredients right there will produce some incredible followers of Christ and people who really live out the gospel. And I just feel like I'm a product of that. I'm a product of a small town, small church, less than 100 people, faithful youth pastor. And so shout out to the small churches. But like I said, I didn't think that I would ever be able to get a job in a church. And it's a total God story where I was in college one day and I just switched colleges and I was still kind of commuting from my small town of, 1,000 or 1,500 people. And
Daniel, where are you from? Just to update.
Yeah, I'm from Cotton Valley, Louisiana.
Okay.
Cotton Valley, Louisiana. My dad worked in the oil field. I grew up on a peach farm. Like we were redneck. Like we were, and it's funny because my wife and I went with my parents to Europe 2 weeks ago, and we're country people. Like we are country people, and we went to the Eiffel Tower, and it's like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like I just thought my dad, who grew up in Cotton Valley and basically never left, like the fact that he left the country was gigantic. And so it was so cool getting to go to like Paris and London and places like that. But it's I drug my family with me. I was like, I'm getting out of this small town and you're all coming with me. But they still live there. Man, we have derailed so much in this conversation.
No, you're good.
Maybe I shouldn't jump into story mode. Maybe you should just ask me questions and we can go back and forth, because I feel like if you just let me run with it, that your ears will hurt from listening to my voice.
It's that deep South preaching, man. It's like church is like 3 hours. We're rolling. No, I just want to hear a little. How did you get into youth ministry? And just to go down that lane. I'd love to hear a little bit more of that story, have you share some of that, and then kind of how you transition to what you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, and that is a great question, because that was quite a transition. But one of my friends got a job at a big church, at a big denominational church, and I just went to go see him after like school one day in college. I was like a sophomore in college, and I found out that this church was looking for a media guy to do like next gen media. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. What does that guy do? And they're like, well, they do videos and graphics and all this stuff. And this was in 2008, 2009. So it was not as prolific kind of as it is now. And I was like, I could do that. I had never done that. Like I never made a video. I didn't, have Photoshop. It was all over my head. But I was like, I could learn to do anything if it meant I can work in a church. And I'm sure that's probably hitting a chord with some people out there, because I feel like we can romanticize what it's like to work for a church and think, this is a dream come true. I don't want to do anything else the rest of my life. And then, of course, life happens and you're like, wow. Some of us are like, wow, get me out of here. And it is, longevity in the church is an interesting subject. I think maybe we should talk about that a little later.
Yeah,
but
100%.
Essentially, I interviewed and I told them, I said, listen, I have no idea how to do any of this stuff, but I'm a fast learner. And they were like, yeah, let's give them a chance. And so they hired me to do media, and I just took a crash course. And I learned as much as I could, as fast as I could. And I really did my due diligence to just be excellent to the best of my abilities. after working for the church for like a year and a half, something like that, I served in the student ministry. They were like, hey, we need someone to preach junior high this week. Would you want to do it? And I said, 100%. I was like, I would love to do it. So the youth pastor was kind of going back and forth between junior high, and then he would run over to high school, preach high school. And, it was a bigger student ministry, so they were segregated. And he's like, yeah, we just need someone to preach junior high. And I was like, I would love to do it. Thank you for asking me. That would be something I'm very interested in. And funny enough, they handed me a script. And it was like, I want to say it was like a DYM curriculum script. And I was like, you guys don't write your own messages? I came from a church where it's like, I didn't even know curriculum existed. I just thought, you get a word from God and you pray on it and you write some thoughts down and you preach it. And when you start preaching real loud, you do at the end of your sentences. You know what I mean? And God said that. I come from like deep South UPC, but anyways, so I memorized that script and I preached that Sunday, and it was the best Sunday I'd ever had in my life. Amazing. I was like, this is why I'm alive. And the youth pastor came up to me probably midway through that next week, and he's like, hey, they really liked you back there. Would you want to do it again? And I was like, yes, would love to. And so after 2 or 3 weeks of them asking me to speak and, giving me these curriculums, they finally gave me a curriculum. And I looked at it and I read it and I said, this message has no substance to it. I said, I am not going to preach this. I said, I read these notes. I read the script. I did everything. I got nothing out of this. If I'm not getting anything out of this, our students aren't. So that was the first time that I decided to write my own message. And I wrote that message, and I never looked back. I never used a script again. I was like, I love this. I love, really crafting these messages. And so fast forward, whenever I started Youth Pastor Co., one of the things I had in mind is I said, I want to create the curriculum that I wish I would have had. I want to create curriculum that has the direction, that has the stability to say, hey, here's the passages of Scripture we need to be talking about. Here's a progression of things that you can methodically talk through the Bible and in culture week by week. But I wanted to make it flexible enough to where you can make the message your own. And I'm not just reading a script that someone wrote, but I'm actually taking this outline, this really robust outline to God and saying, okay, where do we go with this to where you are ministering to my students? You know what I mean? Because I understand my context. He understands my context. Now, God, let's work together and build something that we both love. And so we like to say, at Youth Pastor Co., consider us your research assistants. Like, we just put a lot of work into building some great outlines.
Yeah. So, I would love to dig in a little bit more into Youth Pastor Co. I'm kind of a superhero movie. I love a good origin story. So I, if you're willing to go there, I would love to dig a little bit into the origin story of Youth Pastor Co. Like, I'm sure that was a dream that the Lord planted in you and a while back, and now you're living that out, and you're making an impact on thousands of people, that are in the trenches every single day. People listening to this and watching this podcast. So tell us a little bit about the origin story of Youth Pastor Co. How did it happen, and what all are you guys up to?
Right. Well, it is a God story, and I feel like I'm living a miracle because there's not a ton of companies like ours. And so I can start with this. After I transitioned kind of out of vocational ministry in the church, I really felt like God was calling me to do overseas mission work. So I enrolled in a Bible academy in Stockholm, Sweden. that did mission work in Africa. And while I was there, I couldn't have a job, but I knew God had called me there. So I said, God, while I'm here, what do you want me to do to steward my time? And I just felt like the Lord put two things on my heart. I felt like writing, so I wrote every week, and I felt like he wanted me to learn web design. So that's what I did. Every single week of my 1 year overseas, I wrote and I did web design. And whenever I got back, I had the opportunity to travel with an evangelist from Australia. And while that was a ton of fun, that was not paying the bills. And so whenever I started traveling with him, I just sat down with God and I said, God, I've got to make money. I'm 29. I'm like becoming an adult. I need to make some money. And so I said, I toyed around with the idea of starting a business. And I said, I love the idea of having a business. I have no idea how to run a business. My dad didn't have a business. It's not like my uncle was a businessman. We come from farmers. And so I said, if I was going to do a business, what could I do? I was like, the only thing I've ever done was be a youth pastor. And the only advantage I felt like I had is that I think I was a good youth pastor. And I was proud of my stint in youth ministry. And I said, maybe I could start a business helping youth pastors. I have no idea what that looks like. So I started coming up with as many ideas as I could. I said, okay, I'm gonna start writing blogs that can maybe encourage youth pastors. Remember, because I just came back from Sweden where I was writing each week. And I said, okay, I'm going to build a website and I'm going to put some blogs on it to help youth pastors. And then I said, you know what I'm going to do? I felt like I was a really clear communicator. Like whenever I would have a message, I felt like I very clearly articulated, whether it be the gospel or growing your relationship with Christ. I thought I had an edge of clarity. So I was like, I'm going to teach youth pastors how to, drum roll please, communicate with clarity. So go to communicatewithclarity.com and take this e-course on learning how to preach better to students. And so I record the course, and it's a good course. I don't regret anything, although it's old. By the way, that domain is not owned by me, nor does it host that e-course. And so I just started doing things. I started calling youth pastors. I mean, cold calling. It's like, hey, what can I help you with? And over the course of the next 9 months, I stumbled upon the name Youth Pastor Co. It came about because I was like, okay, who's my target audience? Okay, youth pastors. Okay, well, let me name the website like youthpastor.com. And I was like, well, that's taken. So I was like, oh, .co is available. Maybe I can name my company Youth Pastor Co., like the Youth Pastor Company. And my URL will be www.youthpastor.co. And the logo will literally be the domain name. So you can't miss it. So I had about $1,200 to my name whenever I started it. No exaggeration. And I spent $800 on a logo because I was like, I want to build for the future. I want something that looks professional, not something like I can work Photoshop, but I knew I couldn't do what I wanted. And so I hired someone to design the logo, and I started the website. I started posting blogs. I linked to the course. I started getting like checklist for summer camp, medical waivers, how to, host a lock-in, like stuff. I just started curating as much stuff as I could to help youth pastors while making no money. Absolutely no money. I'm just like thinking if I keep going, I'll find a way to make money one day. And after 10 months of doing it, I kind of hit the bottom where I was like, God, I'm not making enough. I'm making nothing, turns out. I need to make some money. And so I just prayed about it, and someone's name just came to my mind, and I was like, I'm going to reach out to this guy. I reached out to him. He's like, yo, I saw what you were doing with Youth Pastor Co. I'm in the Facebook group. That's like our big like community hub with all like 200 members or whatever. And so he's like, why don't you consult for our conference? They had a pretty big conference at the time. And so I went out there, and I was, I was going to steward this opportunity. And so I'm taking note of everything. And at the end of the conference, I had a meeting with, the president of the organization, the guy who brought me in, a few other people, and they had done like a resource site. And this is what I was thinking. Track with me, Ryan. I said, I'm going to like swing for the fence with them. And I'm going to tell them, right now, you guys do X, Y, and Z, and our company does X, Y, and Z. And I think we could do it better if we partnered together. Because if we don't partner together, eventually we'll become competitors. And I think that we can really help each other. And the president of the organization looks at my drawings on the whiteboard, and he says, I think that's a great idea. And what we're going to do is we're going to take all of our resources that they had a subscription site. They said, we're going to take all of our resources and we're going to host it on your website. And I was like,
sweet.
That's awesome. Yes, something's on the website now. And so they gave me a login to the back end of their website. And as luck would have it, they used the exact same theme I used on WordPress. It's the only theme I knew. I don't know how to use another theme. I learned one theme, and they were using it. So I kind of studied the back end of their website, and I built and it was kind of chaotic. Their website had undergone a lot of renditions. And so I built a lightweight version of their website. And so I built it all out, designed it, and right before we were supposed to merge, we had this like money conversation, which I knew it was going to come up because I was thinking, okay, if I bring this to the table, they bring this to the table, I will run this, they will run this, blah, 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 blah. Then this sounds like a fair split of the finances. And so I presented it to them, and they're like, oh, no. They're like, we're going to own everything the whole time. And they're like, and we'll pay you a salary, but you won't make, but you're going to make up to $50,000 a year, which for someone who was unemployed, that sounded pretty good. And I looked at them, and I knew it was a bad move. And I told them, I said, you'll make more money splitting it with me than you can make by yourself. That's what I told them. It was my last ditch effort to let's do this together. And I meant it because I felt like they had a lot of opportunity, but they weren't running it appropriately, I didn't think. And so they said, we can't do it. You're on your own. And so I built a subscription website, and I had no product. So I literally said, okay, I'm going to start creating some sermon series. And that's whenever we started developing the idea of, if I was in ministry, what would I want? And I built the exact product that I wish I would have had as a youth pastor. Now, fast forward several years, I'm not a big content writer. My wife is an incredible content writer. We have another awesome content writer on our team. And so years later, this guy invites me to preach at his church for his youth group. And he's like, hey, we're using your curriculum. Could you preach week 2 of Thick as Thieves. And I was like, yeah. And it's funny because his assistant sent me the notes. Like I didn't have it. So it was kind of funny. And so I got the notes, and it's the first time that I ever preached from it. And I got up there and I preached straight from our sermon builder, and I got off the stage, and you know what he told me? Because I'd preached for him earlier. He said this. He said, "You've grown so much as a communicator." And I said, in my mind, I'm like, it's not me communicating. It's literally, it's the curriculum. Like it's an awesome curriculum. And it's really funny because my wife wrote that message. So,
so, I mean, I'd love to hear a little bit more about maybe a couple stories as you've evolved over the years. I mean, you've expanded quite a bit. I mean, it's interesting to hear the kind of the scrappy origin story of you trying to pull yourself up from your bootstraps and making connections and, you know, potential partnerships and those things come and go.
Right.
But I know your heart is that you're not just for the finances, but you're there for the impact.
No.
You know, and like I would love to hear a little bit more about, you know, what is some of the maybe just a story or two, or as you've expanded, you know, some impact that you've seen, you know, now that you're taking a step looking back, that you're just excited about what God has done through you providing a lot of amazing resources for people all over the world.
You know, and here's the thing. I'll take one step back because let me clean this up a little bit. It takes money to build incredible products.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It takes money for web development, for beautiful interfaces. You know, it takes money to hire people who are world class. And a lot of people in the church world come from nonprofit backgrounds.
Sure.
So
do you feel like the topic of finances gets a little sticky? You think I feel like there's been times where it has maybe in my life when it comes to these types of things.
Well, here's the thing. We have such integrity and transparency. Like even within our own team, like everything is wide open. Everyone from, you know, our graphic designer up to, you know, me knows exactly how much money we made last week because we don't shy away from money. And I realize that in the church world, it's not as, you know, widely talked about, or sometimes it's even like, oh wait, we want to make enough money, but don't make too much money unless you're like a giver. Wait, do you have, you know, it does get kind of murky because some people build their lives on it. But what I was going to say is because we're a business, we have to make money, and that money allows us to create better products. And now the thing that people don't really know is Youth Pastor Co. also has a nonprofit. And so what we do each month is we take money that, you know, that churches will use to buy curriculum, and we will put it into our nonprofit. And then we take that money and we fund overseas missions. We fund church plants. We fund anti-suicide, mental health awareness for teens and young adults. Like we take, you know, and that's why we actually celebrate being able to create resources, because as a team, you know, really from the top down, we are a generous organization and we use money to create good. You know what I mean? To create better interfaces, to create better products, to bring in, you know, conference last year, we brought in Craig Groeschel. I mean, Craig Groeschel was able to take, you know, a half hour of his time, and well, it took more than that, of course, to craft the message. But Craig Groeschel was able to take, you know, a half hour of his time to pour into thousands of youth pastors coming up. And the only reason that was possible is because we made the stewardship of finances a priority. You know what I mean?
100%.
And so And so anyways, you know, it's awesome. You asked about maybe like a testimony of like, we've seen people use it and the impact that's had on their ministry. We just got this text last week. I wish that we would have started collecting testimonies earlier, because we've come across them and it's like, wait, that was awesome. Like we really were able to help this church. We were really able to help that leader with his ministry. And so this guy texted someone. So I don't know this guy, but he texted someone on our team because their church recently started using Youth Pastor Co. And he said, "Hey bro, a testimony for you to share with your team. Since using your content this past month, we've seen growth spiritually and in numbers. We're wrapping up the Young Saints series and students are on fire. We had 10 salvations alone last week. The content is fire emoji, fire emoji. We've been hitting, around 50 students weekly, and it's growing." And that's what we're like, yes, that is why we are here, because we want to see youth pastors be able to invest less time in, being graphic designers or videographers. And some people are graced for it and have the capacity and bandwidth go for it. But not everyone is. Let our content writers bring together, spend hours crafting the direction for your message. Let our designers and our video people build all of the elements around the sermon series, and then you take it and you fit it to your context. And now, because you're not a graphic designer, a video guy, a brilliant content writer and all this stuff, now that you don't have to be all those things, what you can be as a student pastor.
Yeah.
And what you can do is invest more time in your students, doing the things that, like my youth pastor did when he had 15 students. We didn't even have a screen to put graphics on. And I feel like that's a lot of times what we're missing in ministry is the one-on-one time with our pastor, the one-on-one time with a leader, the encouragement, the love, the look me in the eyes and tell me I'm going to be okay because I feel like my world is crumbling. You know what I mean? We don't need to be, the graphics are great, but we don't need to be worried about that,
Yeah. I think in this day and age, we live in a social media culture where we feel like it's just digital nonstop. And there's a lot of pros to that, obviously, and there's cons to that. And I know I feel this, that it's hard to keep up, and it's hard to know, hey, where should I focus my attention? What should I be doing? What's the best use of my time? If you're maybe giving wisdom to somebody who's in the trenches, 2023, maybe just some do's and don'ts, some things that, knowing that we face a lot of challenges right now. Because I think what you just said is really profound. I would love to, uncover a little bit more there, just from your perspective of working with a lot of creating resources to help meet needs that youth pastors are facing every day. Right. What are those things that you're saying? Hey, if just a word of wisdom, I would say focus on these things and maybe don't get too caught up here.
Yeah, and I think the word that you used has been a very defining word that I've seen in ministry, and it's focus. Focus, because we're all focused on something. The question is, what are we focused on? And so, do's and don'ts, I feel like, I'll start light and get heavier. We'll see. I think a do and a don't is a do. Look at what other people are doing. Other people are brilliant. Other people are doing great things. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Look at what other people are doing. A don't. Don't look at what other people are doing. You are not other people. You know what I mean? You don't have to. It's not a comparison game, And so I think about the parable of the talents, right? You're familiar? The guy, one of the guys had 1 talent, one had 2, one had 5. And what did he do? The guy with 5 went and hustled, made 5 more. Incredible. You got 10. The guy with 2 went out, hustled. What did he make? 2 more, right? The guy with 1 talent, what did he do? He took his talent, he buried it in the ground. And then this is what he said whenever the master came back. He said, I knew you were, a harsh man, reaping where you didn't sow, all this stuff. And he said, I was afraid, so I just buried it. I hid it. You want to know why he was afraid? He was afraid because, okay, that guy has 5 times as much as I have. I can't do that. This guy has twice what I have. I can't do what he's doing. That brother had every excuse in the world of why he can't do something. And it's because his eyes were not looking with inspiration, but they were looking with comparison.
Right.
And I feel like he could have taken that same one talent, looked at what the 5 talent guy was doing and say, I think I can do that. And he could have doubled it. You know what I mean? But instead he looked at it and he says, oh, that guy's got a bigger budget than me. Oh, that guy's got a youth staff. Oh, that guy's got, he can play the guitar and sing. That guy's got, you know what I mean? That guy's got a building that's beautiful. That guy was born into ministry. He knows how to do. That guy went to seminary. We all have reasons where we can look around and feel discouraged, but we also have those same reasons to look around and just be inspired because God is doing such cool things everywhere. And I feel like, we should take inspiration from that and be in awe that it's like, look at what they were able to accomplish. Maybe one day I can get there. But what I have to do right now is I have to steward what I have in my hands. Don't go alone. My goodness, do not go alone. If you're going to be in ministry a long time, then you need stability. And I think about it like climbing a mountain. Like it's a really difficult terrain. It's a heavy hike. It would be easy to start running up that mountain and burn out, or running up that mountain and trip and fall. But if you're ever just working your way up some difficult terrain, how do you do it? One step at a time. I need to make sure that my next step is a good step, and that this step is and if you just keep stepping and keep showing up and stay faithful and stay consistent and stay morally upright and stay plugging into God and stay reaching out to students and just keep on going, you will find yourself higher than you ever thought you can climb and further than you ever thought you could go. But if you're alone, if you're just trying to run fast, if you're just trying to hey, I'm cutting weight because I can do it better without you, I can go faster without you, you could fizzle and burn. Or what you're going to do is you're going to burn up people in the process. You're going to drag people around and use them for what you can, and then they're going to get burned out. You're going to find someone new. You're going to run with them as fast as you can. They're going to burn out. It's not a healthy rhythm. Go slow, and then go with other people. Be in a tribe. Be in a community. Be honest with your community. Hey, guys, I'm tired. Hey, what do you do when you're tired? You know what I mean? The other thing is I wrote this down is I heard this one time and it's never left me. Someone said, and I think it's actually more popularized, not original to the person I heard it from, but they said, never make decisions when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And that's an acronym, HALT, HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, HALT. And I think about the reason why people quit ministry, or the reason why people make irreparable decisions in ministry, is because they were one of those 4.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I really wanted to quit ministry was because I was angry. I was angry at one of my students. I felt like I'd failed as a youth pastor because of the things this student had done. And I was like, I'm out. I'm out of here. I'm done if that's what this is for. I didn't do it. I talked a big game. I woke up the next morning. I kept one foot in front of the other. What's funny, 10 years later, that student I was now the best man in his wedding last week. Not because we're that close in age, but he's, upper 20s, but it's just because why? I kept showing up for him. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I didn't make a rash decision when all the emotions were whirling. So don't make rash decisions.
On that
Yeah.
idea of being alone, I was at a pastor's retreat in the Don Wilson, former pastor of Christ Church of the Valley in Phoenix,
Okay.
was leading this retreat, and he just was talking about the over the years wisdom on how they grew as much as they did, and he just said, you know what, there's basement people and there's balcony people. I was just thinking of this as you were sharing, like running up that mountain. Like there's people. He says the balcony people are going to be cheering you on, and they're showing you where to go, and they're telling you what to watch out for, and they're calling your name, and they're for you. And the basement people are just wanting to distract you and pull you away and pull you down and get you to look off the course. And I would love to hear a couple practicals. What are some things that you can practically do? Maybe if you're in a place where you're thinking, I feel a little alone, I feel a little isolated, and I've been on teams where I feel that way. It's not just about people that you work with. You could be in a room you could be at a conference at a room full of people and feel alone. So maybe just some words of wisdom for anybody if they're tuning into this and they're thinking, hey, I need to get around some people that are really going to help me, that are really going to rally around me. Because I'm a big proponent of that. That's one of the reasons why I'm creating this resource, is to connect people to coaching, because that's been the biggest thing that's kept me in these through COVID, was having individual people in my life say, let's get together and let's talk and let's actually put some plan together when I'm like, I can't even think straight. I don't know what to do. I just am waking up, and it changed my life. So I would love to hear from you what that's looked like for you, and some wisdom you have for.
I feel like there's many different expressions of that answer. You know what I mean? And that's the good news, is that there's options. You know what I mean? There's not necessarily, I would say, one prescribed way, because you obviously got connected to this group of, and of course, I don't quite know your story, what you're talking about, but you obviously got connected to this group of people that maybe were newer to your community. Did you already know them? Were they newer?
Yeah, well, my situation, I feel like was a God deal. It was one of the elders in our church, he's a guy working on his PhD in leadership development. Yeah. And he said, we should get together. Let me know if you want to get together sometime. I would love to just help you.
This is what I've learned.
And I'm like, it was an answer to prayer, because I'm like, I'm tired, again, just like all those things, tired, frustrated, angry, feeling lonely. And it was just every other week going to Zach's basement, just, having a soda and just talking and problem solving and dreaming together. It put some fire back in my gut, and gave me vision for the future that I didn't have on my own. That was God using this businessman in my community, to inspire me, because he cared enough to give me a few hours of his time.
You're not okay right now.
And that radically
you're
changed
really
me.
tired. You're really frustrated. You're X, Y, and Z. Incredible. Acknowledging it's incredible. Hey, you can't put a price tag on it. You know what I mean? If I keep ignoring this, it's going to crescendo into a song that I don't want to listen to. You know what I mean? And so being honest with myself of saying, hey, I need someone. The other thing is identifying, what type of person do I need? You know what I mean? I need someone who's in the trenches with me. I need someone who's already been here. I need someone who sometimes, I heard it put like this: give what you want and you'll get what you need. I heard that one time, and I can remember I had not a bad attitude, but I was just feeling a certain way. And I was a pastor at the time, and I stepped into a coffee shop and I saw this guy, and I could tell he was having a hard day too. And I just walked up to him with all the grace I had, and I said, let me get a coffee and then I'll be back. I get my coffee, I sit down, he pours out all of his troubles to me, and I sit there and I just encourage him, and I lift him up, and I tell him he's going to make it, and I pray for him. And then I walked away and I was like, man, I feel awesome right now. So it's deciding what do I need right now? Do I need, someone older, further along to talk to? Do I need someone who I just feel like is walking with me so I'm not alone? Or maybe I've been so self-centered in this season that actually I just need to pour into someone so that it opens the floodgates of me being poured into, something that would refresh me. And so I think once you figure out, what do I need? First off, figuring out, hey, I need something. Second, figuring out, what do I need? The third thing is going after it with honesty. Oh my goodness. if you are struggling, do not struggle in secret. If you have some sort of secret sins, if you have some sort of thing that you've been hiding, if you have anything that you're ashamed of, that only grows in the dark. Deliverance is not coming because you kept it a secret long enough. Deliverance is coming because you peel back to the dark parts of your soul and were honest to someone.
Yeah.
And the
Amen.
light flooded in, and the healing entered your heart, and the abundance that Jesus Christ has poured into you. You know what I mean? We've got to, and that's why I said it's such a vast question that there's no one response or prescription for it. But you're right. We need community at every stage in the battle. And if we're going to have longevity in ministry, there's got to be people that we're doing it with. We've got to be in the trenches with people. We've got to be pouring into people. We've got to have mentors that we're seeking after. You got incredibly lucky because this guy, probably divinely directed, this elder in your church reached out to you. That's beautiful. It doesn't happen like that to everyone. Sometimes we have to say, hey, I know I need someone further along. Let me make a list of people who that could be. And let me go down my list. Start at the top. You know what I mean? Hey, swing for the fence. In a perfect world, who are you reaching out to? Go for that person. And then work your way down the list. You're going to connect with someone. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's going to be your ticket out. I'm a big proponent of not having this woe is me attitude. Or not having this, well, the stars haven't aligned for me attitude, but by taking initiative to say, this is what I want. How can I go and get it? And of course there's got to be a trusting God piece in that. We can't just manipulate our way through life, through ministry, through relationships. We've got to pray into it. We've got to be patient with it. But I think that setting your sights on something, praying into it, and taking methodical steps towards it is a good way out. We shouldn't be trapped in our own, dysfunction or funk or whatever it would be.
And I think
none of us are perfect.
What you're saying earlier, this idea of longevity is like you won't have that. You won't stay in this very long if you feel that way, and if you kind of have that mindset and that attitude, and you can't live discouraged very long, especially working in ministry. It's not like a normal, I can just go punch in the time and bounce. And everybody, right, that's listening to this understands that, if you're a youth worker, youth leader, youth pastor. So just on that idea of longevity, before we wrap up here, what is maybe just some words of wisdom, a few things, if you could focus on a couple things, these are some keys that are going to keep you doing this longer, that are keep you healthier, and keep your sails full, to keep you doing this in the work of the ministry for the long haul.
Right. I think we've got to have some anchors in our life to where I know that I'm not going anywhere. You know what I mean? I think one of those anchors has got to be a relationship with Jesus. And I don't mean like I show up to church. I mean like, my wife knows I've got to have my time with Jesus. That is an anchor. You've probably been here. We've seen so many people come and go in ministry. And unfortunately, a lot of times you can trace it back to, man, that guy's relationship with God was contingent on that relationship or this position or this whatever. And it's like, you know what? If we're going to be here for a long time, we have to be plugged into the only source that will keep us going. The only fuel that will sustain us in the long haul is a relationship with Jesus. Men will fail you, cause you to quit. offense will creep in, cause you to quit. You'll do something that's misunderstood. People will slander you. It'll cause you to quit. We see these all the time. People are asking about these, what to do with these situations from like our Facebook group. There will be, if you've been in ministry for more than a year, you know that there will be many opportunities that will pull you away or tempt you to quit, or, you know, whatever it would be. And you have to be anchored to the right things. Don't be anchored to the opinion of man. That will not be good. That will not serve you very well. You have to be anchored to Jesus. The other thing that I would say is you need clean relationships. Clean relationships. A lot of times what you can see, people jump out of ministry because a relationship got funky. You know what I mean? Someone offended me. Someone did X, Y, and Z. I did something I shouldn't have done. You know, there's a myriad of things all related to relationships. I said something I shouldn't have said. You know what I mean? I acted in a way I shouldn't have acted towards someone else. Whatever it is, you need clean relationships. Last week, I heard a story about a guy who his youth pastor offended him. It wasn't a student. It was someone working with the youth pastor. He got offended. He held it in for 10 months. He exploded on the youth pastor and quit. The guy who was telling me this had no idea the guy was offended with him, first off. Second off, said, we could have squashed this. This could have been squashed. You know what I mean? It wasn't big. It turned big because it got marinated for 10 months.
Yeah.
The other thing for longevity, and I almost bled into this. So number 1, a relationship with Jesus. Number 2, clean relationships with people.
So good.
Number 3, I would say this. We've got to have integrity. We've got to have holiness. We've got to have morality based on God's word. I think that when we begin to open the doors of our lives to things that will defile our souls, then we become, I feel like it disconnects us from our purpose. And if we feel like we're called, if the Lord called us to ministry, then doing these soul defiling things will really kind of erode our sense of purpose, because we move to seeking peace. And if we don't find peace by realizing, oh wait, I just need to, go back to Jesus and maintain my life of, holiness.
I think it's real easy to be like, longevity in ministry. You need to get yourself around a good team. You need to do this. It's like, well, how about maybe we just get sin out of our life and we just love Jesus and we just keep ourselves pure, and like God is going to, he's going to bless those who pursue righteousness.
Right.
And that's so powerful.
When you're connected to the heart of God, it adds dimensions to ministry. It's not a job anymore. You know what I mean? It's not a cool campaign with the flashy graphics that hopefully you got from us. It's none of that. It's so much deeper. It's so much more rich. It's so much more weighty. And what I was going to say is that whenever people lose that peace because they start to open up their souls to these defiling things, they fall into deception because they think the reason I'm not happy is because I don't like my job. The reason I'm not happy is because my youth group isn't big enough. I need to jump around. The reason I'm not happy is because I don't have the budget to really carry out the vision in my heart. You know what I mean? It's deception. It's just little, no, here's the deal. If you're not happy with 10 students, you're not going to be happy with 100. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying we settle for, here's our 10, we're good. No, we always need to be reaching 10 students, but some people are one talent youth pastors, which means God has trusted them with one talent. It's no indictment on their capacity or skill. It's just, this is what you have been allotted. How will you steward it? And so people will, they'll jump out of ministry because a myriad of reasons. But I think a big thing is they lose satisfaction because they lost satisfaction with Christ, And so it trickles down into ministry, and they start believing, like I said in the beginning, it's like small lies. Like, it's my pastor, it's this church. And of course there are definitely circumstances where, a pastor can make your life miserable, but, assuming that maybe that's not the case, and also making the assumption that you're doing some shady things.
Of course, but and there's a difference between that. But I think the key, just like you're saying, is to be aware of what's real, what's reality, and then to take ownership, right? Like, if you're aware, like, hey, I feel, and I'm seeing that I've got a root of bitterness in my heart. Like, I'm aware, and sometimes it takes having hard conversations with friends to be aware of that stuff, and then saying, I'm not going to wallow, I'm not going to quit, I'm going to take ownership, and we're going to do some work to get this out. Or whatever that might be, discontentment or whatever the case may be, which I've been there myself. I'm speaking, as one of everybody, knowing like that's easy to get there. And it's not so easy to get out, but all it takes, and I'm so grateful for, is by the grace of God, to reach out and to ask for help and to put yourself around people that can help pull you out of that. And like you said, be honest. I think that's so powerful.
No one's above falling into, some just funk, whatever it would be, whether it's, something like, what you said, like discontentment or bitterness or, anything like that. In fact, I say the better of a lover you are, sometimes the harder that, that relational piece can be, because you love people so much. Why would they X, Y, and Z? Any one of us can fall into that. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean we're bad. It doesn't mean we're malicious. It doesn't mean we're evil. It means we're human. It means we live in a fallen world. It means we're around broken people and situations and temptation. What's important, though, is that we are honest, and we're going to pull ourselves out. We're going to do whatever it takes to get out. We're going to recognize this isn't me. This isn't normally how I think. This isn't normally how I behave. This is not who I am. I need to rediscover who I am. You know what I mean?
That's so good. Daniel, maybe just a last word of just some encouragement, for anybody listening. Maybe something you just feel like the Lord's put on your heart just to share with anybody that's listening here. I read something incredible recently that has stuck with me. And, I know we've taken a spiritual edge on a lot of what we've talked about today. And this definitely can be spiritual. It's definitely kind of practical. But I read this thing where it's the 1 degree principle. And I want this to be an encouragement. It says, water at 32 degrees is solid ice, and water at 33 degrees is just cold water. You have a vision. You know where you want to be. You see what God has called you to. You see what God has put in your heart. You see all these things. It could just be not that you're a failure, not that you're not equipped for it, not that you're never going to get there. It could just be that you're a degree off. Just a degree. And I don't mean you on a identity thing, but it could just be, hey, maybe there's some areas in my life where I should just evaluate it and say, am I dialed in
the way that God has called me to be dialed in? You know what I mean? Am I being the person who God has called me to be? You know, I can remember, I'm not going to go off on a big tangent, I promise. I can remember in my early 20s, whenever it felt like I was going through ministry and just God's hand was all over it and it was great. And then it felt like something like lifted a little bit and things just got harder and things started not working out as much. And I had to take a step back and say, why do I feel like I'm not ice anymore? You know, why do I feel like I'm not where I want to be anymore? And I just realized that there are a few things that I had just gotten almost careless on, or not lazy, but had just maybe neglected. And I started getting those little dials of my life and my walk with Christ back in order. And then all of a sudden I'm hitting my stride again. And so I just want to encourage someone who's like, just feels like things are a click off. If you will just take a step back and work with God. You know what I mean by that? I mean, just like, hey, God, I feel like something's off. I feel like I'm not where I want to be, or I feel like I'm not dialed in exactly the way you've called me to be. Help me with this. Help bring it to my mind. And God will bring things to your mind because he's good. He wants you. He wants you to be fulfilled. He wants you to be living the abundant life. He wants these things. He will bring things to your mind that maybe you forgot about, or maybe something that you said, or maybe something that you forgot to clean up. And if you will just go back and follow his voice and make the next right decision, you'll find yourself right back where you need to be. And so if anyone feels off course or maybe not quite where they want to be, I just want to encourage you. God has a plan for you. And it doesn't matter kind of the weird things that have happened in the course of your ministry or even your life. He will lead you with his grace, and he will lead you with his mercy, just perfectly back into the ministry groove or even life groove that he's called you to. And it's good. It's just good. God has good things in store for all of us. It's just a matter of being obedient.
So good. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for just taking some time out of your busy schedule, all the awesome stuff you guys are working on, to create another resource, just to be a blessing and to be an encouragement. And I appreciate the direction of going more spiritual. I think that's so important. It's easy to just get so tactical and think about strategy and what's something I can do, or what's something I can plug and play and to forget about where our hearts are. Just with the Lord. So I appreciate your heart with that. Before we go, how can people follow you, stay connected? If you could point them in a couple different directions, what's next for anybody that wants to keep up with what you guys are doing, maybe get their hands on some of the resources you guys are putting out almost daily?
Come on. The easiest way is to find us on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, it's youthpastor.co. Maybe you've come across a meme or two that we've posted before. And you can click on our link in bio. And if you go there are a myriad of directions that you can go. But one of the things that you can do is go to our website. You can download a free sermon series that'll sign you up for our email list. That'll get you connected to some of the resources that we do. You can also check out our sister site, youthmin.org. That's youth, M-I-N, like ministry.org. We've got games and calendar resources, planning tools, one-off sermon series, all sorts of stuff there. Once again, there's free stuff that you can download. We highly encourage you to do that. We've never talked about this publicly, but we also have two other websites that we never push, we never advertise, but youthgroupgames.com and youthgrouplessons.com. Everything on both of those websites are completely free. So our team builds together or puts together small resources that you can use with your youth group, your youth ministry, whatever, and all of that's completely free. So get into our ecosystem of youth pastoring. I will say this one pitch: if you are interested in digging much deeper and getting in with a group of young pastors who are kind of linking arms together, going through life and ministry together, you should consider our coaching group. We meet once a month. I think it breaks down to $50 a month to be a part of our coaching group, our community. I've probably gotten 20 texts, which we're going to move it to a different platform, not group me, something way better. From our coaching group today, people are asking about summer camp games. People are asking about what to do about X, Y, and Z. And so people are sending memes, having fun together. We have a great group of young pastors growing together in our coaching group. So I want to encourage you with that. That's an add-on with a membership to Youth Pastor Co. or multiplycurriculum.com, which is our annual strategy that I did not mention. But yeah, a lot of ways you can get connected. All of it can be found in our link in bio right there at our Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, man. Go check it out. Give Daniel and all of his awesome resources some love. And thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys in the next one.